Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this week's webinar Wednesday. Welcome back. Here we are again at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday. Lots to talk about, lots been happening. And this week, our guest will be Malcolm Chisholm, who will be talking to us about the independent review of social care in Scotland. So that's what we're doing this morning. So here on a rainy Wednesday in Glasgow.
And it's not well. It's a bit dreary up in Aberdeen, but it's dry, dry and dreary.
Mm-hmm.
And again, a bit of a shift in things across the country in terms of the levels of restrictions coming up as well, eh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Shifting changes from this Friday. So changes from this Friday, and obviously. More restrictions for some of us. So contemplating the future for the next few weeks, really, and thinking, well, what does that really mean for us, and what's that gonna? I wanted to ask you something, Alistair. What is it that keeps you going? What are the things that help you through this process? Because I was just thinking about that earlier.
Yeah, things that keep you going. I think that I've learned to really celebrate the things that go well, those moments of success with people. I was having a discussion with Danielle Farrell yesterday about some of the stuff we've done together over the last 3 months, and just how, there's been times when we've been in the thick of it where I think she could have seen me far enough when we've been developing things on Moodle, and the tech hasn't been working and it seems like a slog. But when we get it done, I think, when we get to the end and we see just how much folk have done in those times, and I guess one of the things that she was saying was, if she hadn't had so much to concentrate on, in developing her business over the last couple of months, she doesn't know how she would have coped as well.
Yeah.
So I think things like that, and
I think also there's a bit about being adaptable, isn't there, and still being able to focus on the things that you can do rather than the things that you can't do.
If you can be an optimist, yes, and go with it.
Because that's what I think. I mean, there's so much uncertainty around about being able to see people that you love, being able to spend time with people, being able to do things, and obviously everyone's own circumstances are different. But for me, I think it's things like I was talking to you about going out on my bike and going to cafes, and that's something I really like to do. And now I won't be able to go. I'll still be able to go on my bike and go to a cafe, but I won't be able to sit down in the cafe. But I can still get a takeaway coffee and sit down somewhere else. And I think for me, it's just being able to think, actually reframe the things that I'm looking forward to, because I just think for me it's so important in terms of.
I think you're right. And I mean, I've done a little bit of looking at NLP, that neuro-linguistic programming, that idea that sometimes there's that difference between, what you tell yourself in your head and what's actually going on, and that you can create that. You can create a bit of that, either thinking that things are negative or out of control, versus you can actually take back a bit of control over like you say, like how you interpret things and staying flexible, so that you're not getting freaked out. One of the other things I think that helps is my dog. My dog comes up in the morning and he's happy to see me, and he goes out for a walk, and life, and it reminds me when I'm walking down the park, even if it's rubbish, you just think, actually, that's life's still pretty good. We're still doing okay. So it's hard. It's hard for a lot of folk.
He doesn't know any difference to any restrictions, does he? He doesn't know anything about any restrictions.
He doesn't at all. Hi, Debbie. For joining us. So it's just keeping ourselves going. I think and we've got a responsibility to ourselves and to each other, not to be relentlessly cheery in an annoying way, but because we've got to acknowledge the downs with people, and especially the downs coming up over Christmas.
And also respect that everybody's circumstances are different, and the impact is different for everybody. That's the thing for me, Alistair. And for me, I can actually really seriously just see how lucky that I am, because I've lived with someone that I love. I've got a garden that I can go out to, and all those things. And not everybody is as lucky to be able to have those places and people that they can talk to. So it's
certainty as well. Yeah, the certainty that will be the same next week or the week after. You know what I mean? For a lot of people, it's like, you know, how is that stuff changing? But
and when I remember when we started out on this 6 months ago, and we started out doing these more than 6 months ago, and we talked about the importance of being kind to other people, just generally being kind. And I mean, that's always an important life message anyway, isn't it? But it is really thing that we should just think about making sure that we are kind and caring to everybody else. Yeah.
Yes. Well,
and respectful as well. So we've got a few things to get through before our guests join us, haven't we? So so we probably would be just reflecting a bit on life and the changes to the levels. You were going to just mention again the easy read document that June, our esteemed colleague, has put together mainly.
Yes, indeed. Hopefully that should be appearing on your screens as we speak.
Yeah. So it's just a way of simplifying and putting the essence of the different levels and the protection measures that are in place in the different levels.
Yes. Go for it.
I was just going to say that's accessible both through our website now.
Yes. And it's also on Facebook and Twitter.
Facebook as well. Yeah. And then obviously with the changes that are going, we'll keep that updated with the changes that are going on, but people can check the level that they themselves are in easily just by putting that postcode in the Scottish Government website, can't they? So
and that's a really useful starter for that. We've also said that we're gonna try and do a couple of explanatory separate things just about what the idea of a bubble is, an extended family and stuff, and ways that people can be imaginative round about while still staying within the rules, making the most of opportunities to keep connected, even during the toughest times, because we're still hearing, particularly during the Feel Good Fridays, about situations where folk are maybe not always getting as much help to stay connected as they maybe could. That there are other ways. So although this is it's easy read, but it's quite long because it has got all the details in it, and it's got the government's version of things as well in there. So it's but it's hopefully something that will be really useful to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when we've certainly had some feedback on that of people who've said it's been really helpful to them so far as well. So that's good. So here's one of our comments coming in. Yeah. Absolutely. And one of the other, what else we were going to share, Alistair? We were going to share something about what's the next one?
The next one, so it was going to be, the next one was going to be the My Choices, My Future information sessions.
So this is the Life Changes Trust.
Yes.
And the Life Changes Trust, we've been doing we are involved in work with the Life Changes Trust, and this is a new fund, which is the Life Changes Trust is going to shut a year early, and it's been a fund that's been around it's been a trust that's been around for several years now, I think since 2013, and was due to go till 2023, but they're going to shut a year early and try and focus their work as much as possible over the next 18 months, essentially. And this is the last individual awards program for young people who are care experienced. Mm-hmm. And it's a fund that is open now from Monday the 16th up until the 14th of December. So I think it's got like 4 weeks essentially that it's open for. And it's eligible for any care experienced young person who has at least 3 months care experience, is currently aged 18 to 13, living in Scotland, and who is looking at, if you just go back to the first bit, Alistair.
Oh, yeah.
Go back. Yeah, who's looking at trying something new and taking initial steps towards a long-term aspiration, and who's got an idea about what their next step might be. But if we go on to the next page of the slide, sorry, that middle one.
This one?
No, one before that. Yeah, so applications can be by video application or telephone. So they're trying to make it as open as possible, even for a young person who might not be particularly keen to get something down in writing. They're trying to make the application process as open as possible. And they've also extended the age on this one, because the previous schemes have only been up to age 26. So they're now acknowledging that, that people up to the age of 30 can apply for this. And here's a couple of the examples of that. So this says CAT volunteers at a local youth group. A few of the young people are unaccompanied asylum seekers and don't speak much English. CAT's using a £550 grant to learn Syrian language skills and buy some fun language materials to use with young people. So this is a young person who's giving something back herself and looking at ways she can develop her own skills. So really, we're just trying to publicize My Choice, My Future, and the opportunity for it's a great opportunity, really, if you are a care experienced young person. To apply.
So that's the contact details down the bottom there. Brilliant. So it's quite a short turnaround. So it's important that people, if they are interested,
out on that.
So that's good. Perfect. And we've got that, and we've got this as well. Marvelous. Okay. Next we've got the AGM coming up.
Yeah, you can also get that, as June is sharing with us there. You can also get information on our website, because we've shared that on our website about Life Changes Trust Awards scheme. And you said about our AGM, which is next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, I'm just
strangely online.
Strangely online for a change, isn't it?
Or online.
Fancy that. Hopefully this should be. Sorry if it's a bit small, but can you see that?
No, it's not come up yet, this one, Alistair.
This seems to be a thing sometimes. It just.
Okay.
I'll try it again. It seems to always work the second time when it's with Microsoft Edge.
Okay.
Let's try the second time.
Our AGM is at 3 p.m. next Tuesday, the 24th. Here we are. 3 p.m. next Tuesday, the 24th. We are going to go through some of the formal things that you need to do at an AGM, reflecting on the previous year, which was the year leading us into this year, when we've had all new restrictions and done everything differently and not really done the things that we thought we would do this year now. And we're also going to do a little bit of looking forward, which will be really thinking about what can we do that is going to have the most positive impact for the future. And you're also going to share a little bit of work that you've been involved in with a couple of people, which is around the media and images and inclusion of people with a disability in the media.
And related to that, just before we get our guests to join us, we thought we'd just share a little bit about something related to that. So we're doing a bit about inclusive media strategy, sort of thinking about how people with disabilities are being portrayed in the media and how much opportunity folk have to take meaningful roles. And Danielle Farrell has let us know that there's an event tomorrow hosted by the BBC on LinkedIn Live called Reframing Disability, 2 till 6 tomorrow. And so again, we'll share a bit the information on Facebook and also on LinkedIn and Twitter. But basically, it's an opportunity to get involved in thinking about the best way for these things to happen. It's done it again, hasn't it? It's not shared.
I've just been sharing the thing which says if anybody wants to join us at our AGM, it is an open meeting next Tuesday, and you can just get in touch with us to get the link for that, because it's going to be on Zoom.
Right, it's come up this time. It seems to take 2 shots every time now. So there we go. That's it there anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, a packed programme tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Alistair. So we're now going to invite our guests for this week on, and our guests are Malcolm Chisholm and Alison Taylor, who are both involved in the independent review of social care in Scotland. So welcome to you both.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting us.
No problem. It's great to have you here. So can we just ask you both to introduce yourselves? Just say a little bit about yourself, and I'll just remind everybody who's watching live that they are able to make comments or ask questions in the comments section at the side of the screen as we talk. So you just want to go ahead, Malcolm.
Okay, I'm Malcolm Chisholm. I used to be a politician. It seems like a long time ago, but I was in the Scottish Parliament from the start until 2016. In fact, before that, I was in the UK Parliament in London, and I was a minister at various times, including Minister for Health and Community Care from 2001 to 2004.
Okay, thank you. And Alison?
Morning, everybody. Thank you, Keith. I'm Alison Taylor. I'm a Deputy Director in the Scottish Government Health and Social Care Directorates. My team is the team that's supporting Derek Feely and his expert panel in this review. Real pleasure to be able to join Malcolm this morning. Thank you for allowing me to come too. Very keen to hear what colleagues attending the meeting have to say. I'll put myself on mute, but if there's anything I can help out with or any sort of questions about the review that I can help with, I am delighted to do that. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so first of all then, Malcolm, do you want to just tell us a bit about the review and how you got involved in it?
Well, the people on the review were appointed by the Health Secretary, Jean Freeman, so I got a phone call from her one day, presumably 3 months ago or something, and I was happy to take up her offer. So there's been a lot of work happening in the last 2.5 months. We've all had regular meetings every fortnight to discuss progress. But I think the most important part of the review during the first couple of months has been the very wide engagement with people who have experience of adult social care services. Derek Feely, the chair of the review in particular, has met an enormous number of people. I'm told he's had 100 meetings. I certainly can't claim to have had that, but I have sat in on some. For example, a couple I've attended recently have been with the Independent Living Fund in Scotland and with housing providers in Scotland as well last week. So, but particularly Derek has been engaging, and I know Alison and other civil servants have been as well. So I think the important thing for us in this review is to start by asking the question, what does high quality social work mean from the point of view of the people who actually use these services? That we really want to have those people who use the service at the heart of the review. And we're kind of coming towards the end of the engagement process now, although if people want to still put in written submissions, for example, that is possible. We have received, I think, about 150. In fact, we're all busily reading through those at present, and they're very instructive and helpful. So if anybody still wants to put in a written submission, that you're certainly free to do that. But we're now getting to the stage where we're asking the question, what changes do we need in order to deliver the priorities that have been highlighted to us by people who have experience of the service? And obviously we're going on in the next couple of months to talk about funding. We can't avoid that. Governance, regulations, how we can achieve continuing improvement, and that obviously is our objective. We want to see, the starting point from the review was how can we improve adult social care, and I think often we're using the word transformation in relation to that, but at the same time we want to retain the things that work for people in the current system. And obviously we want to hear from people what the problems are, but we also want to hear what things they like and appreciate in the current system. I imagine in the context of self-directed support, there'll be positives and negatives, and obviously I look forward to hearing about that from people taking part today.
Yeah, transformation is a big word, isn't it? And often it's a word I think it's probably a word that's overused. Actually, I think people always talk about transformation and And actually, I think it is. It's definitely about building on what works at the moment, and focusing on the thing that you said. Really, is that asking that question, and I think that's been the first part of the review, hasn't it? What matters to you? Really, asking that question, what matters to you, and then trying to gather that information in to inform the next stages.
I mean, I think there are consistent messages coming across, and also from a lot of the written submissions. So I think people know a lot of the changes they would like, but it's how to bring them about. I think that's the other thing, that in terms of the recommendations, we want to always say, well, how can this be achieved? So that's the big challenge that we have in the next 2.5 months. We've only got to the end of January, so it's quite a fast process, but we will be meeting really more intensively over the next 2.5 months, so that the report can be delivered to the Cabinet Secretary for Health at the end of January. And I know that Derek in particular, but everyone involved wants to have a report that's accessible, and it's also relatively succinct. I think we've all seen 200-page reports, nothing wrong with some of them, but I think accessibility and succinctness will be what we're aiming for as well. It's a report that can be widely read and shared, because we want people to be familiar with the contents. I think that will be part of ensuring that the recommendations are delivered, although obviously it's up to the Scottish Government and the ministers at the end of the day to say whether they're not obliged to accept all the recommendations. I mean, this interests me quite a lot as someone who was involved with the Scottish Parliament from the beginning, indeed for the first 17 years, and also having experience of the Westminster system, that I think the Scottish Parliament and the Scottish Government have made very good use of external groups. They haven't always accepted all their recommendations, but I think that's been a way of using the expertise that exists in wider society in Scotland in order to to move forward policy. We could think of, I mean, lots of examples on that in the early days. The QB review on university tuition fees, for example, and when I was the minister, there was a care review about the health service. There's so many examples you could give, and I think it's been a strong feature of government in Scotland that it's been willing to appoint external groups and then generally accept most of their recommendations, but clearly the government has the discretion to reject some of the recommendations if they wish.
Yeah, just thinking about that though, I mean, and coming back to Keith's point before about the overuse of the word transformation, I guess one of the things that's been difficult in a lot of cases has been there's been a lot of well-worded, really well-focused reports on what needs to happen and change. And it's the ability sometimes for some of those really clear messages about what it's going to take for SDS to work, the kind of more of the same won't work in social work, all of these type of things. It's getting those things to be sustainable, to not to be eroded by other further developments later on. A lot of the examples that we see of really great practice often can be in little local clusters, depending on really confident leadership, really people who understand the values and the rights behind approaches. And it's getting, we do this session on a Friday called Feel Good Friday, and one of the folks, Chloe's joined us saying hello. Any questions, Chloe? Feel free to let us know. So one of the things that one of the people that came along to that, they said it would be when we were doing feedback sessions was whatever it is that comes out of it, it needs to have teeth. It needs to actually, because that's a problem. It can be beautifully worded. The SDS guidance from the government's well worded, but still the consistency is not there. Still, some people are taking it really seriously, and other people are much more risk averse and sticking within previous methods. So that's been certainly one of the things that we've heard from people, is for it to have teeth and for it to actually result in sustainable change rather than just a short-term blip.
No, I mean, I totally understand that, and I take your points about the word transformation, but I think it's good to have that ambition. But equally, definitely. I accept your point that it's certainly not enough to have a report made of warm words without the practicalities about how it's to be delivered. And I think that's why Derek Feely has been so insistent on this how factor. It's got to have practical recommendations that will actually drive forward change. And I think your point about the local examples is a good one, because we certainly want to have far more national consistency and to that extent national direction. But a lot of the most transformative, to use that word again, changes, as you've referred to, happen in local areas. So I think part of the trick is to capture that and to see how that can be scaled up, because yeah, I mean, I think it's innovation in local areas that is often the key to this. So I actually agree with what you're saying, and I think we're all aware of this, because there have been any number of very worthy reports, and I'm not disparaging any of them, because they have driven policy and practice forward, but it's that gap between the rhetoric and the reality that I know is one of the messages we hear from people who have everyday experience of social care.
I think there is benefit in the review group being I think there's always a benefit in the independence of a group like the review group, isn't there? And I was noting that you're also looking at international experiences.
Well, yes, and there's one person on the group from Sweden, so certainly he's feeding that in. But I know Derek himself has a lot of international experience because of previous work that he's done. So yeah, I think we do want to look to other examples, and in fact we have someone from England on the advisory board as well, if you call that international. So we have got a wide spread of people, but the people were appointed by the Cabinet Secretary. So obviously I can't comment in detail about why she chose who. I mean, some people might ask why did she choose me, but it's not for me to comment on those matters.
Yeah, just interestingly, somebody said in one of our sessions as well that it was really great that the review was going out, the panel was going out and meeting with lots of groups representing folk with a disability. But wouldn't it be better to have that expert panel made up, including some people with disability as well?
Well, we have one notable person, Jim, on the group who has a massive experience of this. But so I think that has been recognised to some extent. You could always argue we should have more people, or there are obviously other interests that some people are saying should have been on the group, the workforce, and so on. But certainly that's a major focus of the group as well, because although users of the service are the primary focus, we're very, very mindful of the whole issue of the workforce, which of course relates very directly as well to the kind of service that's delivered. So in fact, our next meeting is going to be a big meeting focused on that.
Because the review is very broad ranging as well, isn't it? So it's I think one of the things that I was heartened when I heard Derek speaking in his interview with the Alliance early on was just about the broad-ranging aspect of the review, that it's not ruling anything out in its scope and in its reflections. So.
Well, I think you have to listen with an open mind. I mean, I think there's nothing worse than a review that writes its conclusions before it starts. So I think we could be confident at this stage that, because we've heard it so often, that certain themes are going to be in the final report. But all the time we have to listen with an open mind, and that's the only way in which you learn and develop. So, I mean, for me personally, it's just been a fascinating experience as well as an important one. Just obviously an area that I've had interest in for a long time, but you're learning all the time as you listen to people who really know about it, which is primarily the people who experience the services, but of course the people who deliver the services also have a wealth of experience, and we're certainly learning from them as well.
Yeah, I'm just reminded as well that a couple of years ago we did a session up in Aberdeen, and we did some stuff in Glasgow as well around about the link between kind of risk enablement and people's experience with services as well, and it was very hard even back then. It was hard back then to get commissioners of service to really say what they wanted providers to get, to provide in order to get that innovative services out there, so that the providers of services could be confident they were able to deliver the outcomes for people that would make a difference. And so it's that I often find that a lot of the discussions come down to that power base as to how do we get everybody on the same page so that there's that confidence, that yes, I'll encourage you to be this flexible, and you will then deliver that, and that answerability to the person who's receiving the service will be truly much more equal and much less of a hierarchical nature than it has been previously.
Well, I mean, I think one of your own recommendations was about this shift of power from organisations to the people, and particularly that was with reference to the options for self-directed support. But the principle applies. I think the whole idea of co-production and participation and empowerment. I mean, I can say confidently that we take a human rights-based approach, and I think some of these principles are absolutely central to the review: empowerment, participation, choice, I think, and control. Obviously, your own organisation's name. I mean, all that's central, but obviously you're not going to be satisfied with that if we don't say, well, how is that going to be embedded in the process from beginning to end? But I think your comment about the commissioners and the providers was very interesting, because we've got a lot of work to do in that area. But I think that whole issue about more collaborative commissioning and how all that works, I think, for me, is one of the most interesting areas. And we've really got to, we haven't come to conclusions on that yet, but it's certainly something we're very interested in. And I think, in terms of headlines, we want a more collaborative approach, but I think the nuts and bolts of that are going to be an important part of the review. Although there is a question there as well. It's in terms of your own comment about innovation. There's a balance between laying down certain principles and going into the fine detail, because to some extent it may be that local areas have to have a certain freedom on the detail of that. But I think we need to map out clear principles on that, because I think it's clear from providers as well as people who experience the service that the current very competitive arrangements for procurement are not really working well in many places. So I think that's a very interesting area, and very much an open question at the moment in terms of our deliberations.
Yeah, what it made me think there was I certainly know that part of the impetus has been some of the discussion around the idea of a national service, hasn't it? And in our discussions anyway, we find that people are quite equivocal about that idea of a national service, and I personally would reflect that as well, because, as you say, you need some local accountability within that as well. And the issue doesn't really feel like it's a national service. It feels like the consistency of expectation, that wherever you are in Scotland, you should be able to expect the same opportunity, the same level of access to support and services that make sense for you, and that you can, in what we would say, direct your own support in a way that works for you. So so just any reflections on the national service aspect?
Well, I think what you've described is definitely the bottom line, which I think everybody would agree on, because we hear it all the time from users. We would like portability, move from one part of Scotland to another. We would like more consistency. Again, that was a theme, and I think what you were writing about self-directed support. So we need to have more, perhaps, national criteria around eligibility criteria and assessment. So I think there's a whole lot of areas which actually people would agree totally on. And I think equally there are areas where people are worried about what a national service might mean. And I don't think most people do mean this by a national care service, but the principle of choice, which I've already referred to. We must have choice for people. That's really fundamental to self-directed support. And therefore you have to have a diversity of providers. So I think we all recognize particularly the very valuable role and the quality of service delivered by many third sector providers. So I don't think anybody is talking about, nationalizing all the services. I really don't know anybody that is thinking about that. I think there are concerns about the way that certain practices, perhaps, of some private care home providers, and we hear about, money going to tax havens and all that kind of thing. So I think there are concerns about that. But in general, we have to have the principle of choice. So I think there will be some debate, and the government will have its own view about what it may mean by a national care service. But I think I can reassure people it's not the bad things that people are worried about. And I think we can all recognise that there are certain very positive things about having a more national approach in terms of consistency standards and so on.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so we've got a comment here from Fiona Colbert saying, "Isn't it the crux of it that the systems drive and power flows? Social care has become transactional and not relationship based, and that fundamentally relationships are what make a quality of life. Who wants to live in service land? Currently, procurement isn't necessarily about choice; it's about finance." So that's an observation from somebody just about what it feels like at the moment sometimes at the sharp end, and we've heard a bit about that, about the differences between what's available locally, not being necessarily consistent with the SDS guidance, the guidelines, the very clear stuff that's come from Scottish Government, the very lovely wording, some really good examples that should give confidence, that should allow people to be confident they should get that people still seem to feel in a lot of cases that they've got to argue from a point of view of, well, go and tell us why you're entitled to any of this. And that tires people out. I think that's one of the things that a lot of people have told us, that they're tired about having to argue, not from a position of, well, I'm really clear about what the government says and I'm starting from there and we're making some adjustments, but like, go and prove that you're entitled to anything, and then the next person that comes along has to start from the same point, and that doesn't necessarily create that collaboration feeling that we're in it together.
Well, there's a lot there in what you said, and on the comment that we saw on the screen as well. I mean, the starting point is, what is social care? To some extent, we don't really like the term. What is it? Well, that's what we've been listening to people saying. But is it about ensuring that you have the support needed to live in the community on an equal basis with others? So I think that idea of a relationship, which was in the comment, I can see the importance of that relationship and support. And in terms of the second part of the comment, if I remember it correctly, I think that there can be I think there could be a contradiction between the principles of self-directed support and choice and the way that procurement has operated. In fact, it's one of the arguments that's used against competitive tendering by many people, that it actually does contradict the way in which self-directed support puts the power in the hands of the individual to choose. So I think that is one of the considerations we'll have to have when we come to conclusions about commissioning and procurement. So there was a great deal in that comment on the screen, and obviously you supplemented it yourself. So all that resonates with me, but obviously you're not going to be happy until we translate that into practical recommendations.
Yeah, social care is quite a difficult term for people to. It's quite a difficult thing to understand, isn't it? Really, if I went outside in the street, and I can still just about do that, I think, and talk to social care, most people wouldn't really understand.
No. Well, it's an interesting point, that, in fact, and I suppose in terms of the origins of this review, I mean, I don't actually know what they are, obviously, in terms of the government, but in terms of the public imagination, a lot of it might be, we've been hearing a lot about social care with COVID and care homes. So obviously care homes are part of the fabric of social care, but it's that there are an awful lot of other bits. And in fact, there are probably some parts of social care that people don't think of as part of social care, but they are. I mean, I've even seen in some of the written submissions, people are saying some people don't recognize it, services for homeless people. That's part of social care, but people think, oh no, that's part of housing or something. So it's actually seeing the totality of that, and housing actually is a good example, because that needs to be brought into the mix as well in terms of the whole health social care interface. So I think it is interesting. So that's why I think those descriptions of social care that don't use the term are quite useful. And certainly from several people, both providers and users, this idea of just, being alongside somebody in order to support them to live life as they want to live it, and as an equal citizen in the community. I think that's an important thing to do, actually. I think probably we will do that as part of the report, because that probably not necessary to do that for people who use the service, but actually for the wider public, that's quite an important thing to do.
And thinking about that whole wider public thing, I mean, I guess there's been quite a lot of discussion. We talked a bit earlier, just before you joined, about there's going to be a session with the BBC tomorrow around about disabilities in the media. There's been a big, massive petition, a big discussion about the Emmerdale storyline about Down syndrome and abortion.
All right.
And so I think that there is a lot about this whole idea of social care in the public, that the media's got a responsibility to kind of avoid this polarized view of, there's still been quite a lot in some programs about, portraying, folk as being benefit surrounders, or, rather than exploring people as people rather than as a disability or as a user of a particular benefit. And it would be really great if we could get much more equality in that, so that people can see folk as individuals, because that's another thing that's featured sometimes in the use of self-directed support, is even if people are spending less money, and getting great outcomes for people, their anxiety about how some of that gets viewed in the media, or your public funds are being used for this. That's something that I think has got to change if we're going to encourage people to really, help people to have good lives.
No, absolutely. I think that is a very important area. But I think in terms of our work, I think rooting it in a human rights-based approach, I think will help to do this, so that basically everybody has certain human rights, and we just must make sure that our practice delivers that. And I think that will really be right at the starting point of what our report will do. But certainly that wider work in the media, I'm sorry, I don't watch Emmerdale, so I don't know the details of that. But I think I don't know. It's possible. I mean, because one of the ministerial responsibilities I had after I did health was for equality as part of the communities portfolio, and I don't know. I think there's certainly a long way to go in terms of people understanding the rights of disabled people, and I think if our report can add to that, I think that would be a big bonus as well.
I think that's a really important thing, embodying the report in human rights with a human rights perspective, and when we started saying that thing about social care, I suppose it reminded me of what I think this is about. And I think that, and I'm going to say something again, which might not be immediately obvious, but I think it's about social justice, equality, and inclusion. And those three things are the essence of what I think we are talking about here. So it's broader than getting the right number of hours to be able to whatever it is that you need. It's a much for us anyway. It's a much broader thing than
no, I mean, I would agree with that. I think those the three words, social justice, equality, and inclusion, encapsulates it very well, I think. But again, it's a matter of making sure that we have practical ways of delivering that. But certainly that has to be the framework for it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and obviously, counter to that, then we recently had the Scottish Human Rights Commission publishing their report on the impact of COVID on people and the support that they get, and the great difficulties that obviously has caused for people, irrespective, for example, of the national guidance that we talked about that came out, which talked about doing whatever it takes to enable people to get the right support in these exceptional times. So
no, I read that report. It was very concerning indeed, and in fact, until I read it, I didn't realize there had been such a massive problem around that. So hopefully that is being addressed, hopefully already, but it's certainly something we have to be mindful of when writing the report as well.
And that's something that we've heard as well from people, is that having that voice, that space to be able to comment on, not directly necessarily to the person that they're speaking to, but to somewhere else, about their experience, about how empowered or not they feel, about how successful that was, to create that sort of body of knowledge about, well, in some parts of the country, folk are folk are feeling that they've got an option to do all of the 4 options or not, or they've been given the information they need to take on an option 1 or an option 2, what have you, that would be a really powerful thing, because people don't necessarily have that. So it's all about the quality of that relationship with the person they're speaking to, and they don't necessarily know where else to go with that.
No, absolutely. I mean, well, your work, your report, your comments on that were useful that you sent to us, but also, of course, that long report from the Alliance, which I've also read, and I think some of those themes very much come through in that as well. I mean, there were lots of recommendations, but I suppose basically they want to ensure that all population groups can exercise the right to make a meaningful choice between the self-directed support options. So I think that's very, very important as well. I think self-directed support does deliver a lot of what we want to achieve, but so I think making sure that there are improvements there will be a key avenue of progress as well.
It was really interesting that was quite a strong message from the people that we talked to anyway, who came to our sessions. It's quite a strong message. It was almost like what we need is not to have barriers in the way of us being able to direct our own support in a way that works for us. So it was about removal of barriers rather than anything else. And the barriers we could talk about in all sorts of different ways, as Alistair's described them already earlier on. Can we just? We talked earlier on, didn't we, Alistair, about the importance of looking forward with hope, and I think whatever you do, and always, that's a really, really important thing to do. So if you look forward with hope to the recommendations that you're going to make for at the end of this, at the end of your short life, really short, because it's a very short life. Yeah. What do you think? How do you look forward with hope to that?
Well, I mean, I can't prefigure what we're going to recommend. I think some of the themes probably that have become clear, and I don't think from what I've said that you'll doubt that certain themes will be prominent, but certainly it's not appropriate and indeed is not possible to prefigure what we're going to recommend in detail. But although I accept totally your caveats around the word transformative, I would like to think that our recommendations will make a significant difference, and that we will see improvements and continuing improvements as well. I think we all believe in that, but I think Derek in particular, because of his interesting experience in terms of continuous improvement in healthcare, I think he has that approach where he wants to see continuous improvement taking place, and in our case in social care. So I think that whole idea of continuous improvement will be there as well. So I don't think in that sense transformative it's too ambitious. I think we want this report to make a significant difference. We don't want it just to be another report with warm words that lies on the shelf. And there have been reports like that. I've probably been involved with some in the past myself. So in that sense, we really want this to be a report that really offers hope to disabled people and to older people and anyone who benefits or could benefit from social care services. I think another dimension to this is trying to get a shift towards more preventative work, because I suppose the way social care has developed, it's become, in a sense, narrower and narrower, and that excludes a lot of the preventative work. So certainly our ambition would be to reach out to more preventative work as well, because that, in whole area swathes of policy makes total sense. But it doesn't always happen. So I think we would hope to point developments in that direction as well. So, and also we will. I mentioned funding on the way. We'll have to say something about funding. I suppose, as an outsider, my only worry about this is, well, we're living in hard financial times. But having said that, that mustn't be an excuse for not doing anything. So, that is a problem for the government. There's no doubt about it. But we have to come up with recommendations that we think are necessary and say something about how we think they can be funded. And that's our task. And then the government obviously does have a hard task, particularly in relation to funding, how it carries that forward. But that's our responsibility. And I suppose that's my only slight worry personally, but that's a general worry we all have about public services going forward after the time of COVID. So it's a challenge, but it's not an excuse for not making progress.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, these Wednesday, these discussions we have on a Wednesday always go very quickly, and we invited you.
Is that going already? Is it?
Yeah. We invited you on for half an hour. We've already done slightly more.
Alison's not had a word. That's not fair.
I know.
I think you should get a civil servant's view at the end. She can put you round, see if I've said anything wrong.
Absolutely. Let's go. So what I'm going to say is let's go around with our final comments then, and that obviously can include you as well, Alison. Just the reflection on all the things that we've been talking about. So, do you want to do that first, Alison? Are you happy to do that?
Yeah, of course. That's been really, really interesting for me. Thank you. I didn't say at the start, I've worked in the Health and Social Care Directorates for about 12 years now, though not when Malcolm was a minister, so we missed each other. So I think that the point about looking forward with hope is actually a really important one. I had the pleasure to bring together a little team to support this when I was asked to support it earlier in the year, and everybody I spoke to within the civil service to say, you know about this side of things, will you come and help us, kind of thing. Everybody said, I'd love to, as long as there's really a chance to say what needs to happen. So I think there's a very common sense that there's an opportunity here, and there's a bit of a timing thing as we come towards an election. As Malcolm quite rightly says, it's for an incoming government to decide what to do, how to do it, and how to fund it. But to have this opportunity to set out what the review members feel ought to happen is I think just an opportunity too good to miss. And I'm really, really grateful to the number of people who, with very little notice, including yourselves, have really contributed to the thinking. So good. And I think someone circulated the Secretariat mail list, mailbox earlier. If people wish to get in touch, please do. This is an open process, and thank you again for having me.
Yeah, and I will just say that the open call is still available for people to send in there. I mean, you've had, what was it, more than 100, or I can't remember what you said, Malcolm.
I think it's 180 now.
Yeah.
I get an update every morning from an increasingly weary team. But obviously we were hoping to draw as many thoughts in as we could a little, about a week ago. But if people have something that they want to say, please send it in. We're not going to say no to a submission. Thank you.
No, I mean, that's how we learn. Thank you very much for inviting us on. I mean, I've found it interesting to hear your comments, and you sent some in writing beforehand, and thank you for the person who also put in a very interesting comment halfway through. So it's, for me, it's really very personally very interesting, and for me it's educational, just listening to people who are immersed in this on a daily basis, either as users of the service or as providers of the service. So that's how we learn. So thank you for adding to that by giving us your comments and giving us an opportunity to update you on progress. Thanks very much indeed.
Yeah. Okay. We have got another comment there, but we won't talk about it now. But we'll just send it in to you as well.
Okay. Fine. Yeah.
So that make sure we don't lose that, is what I'm trying to say there. Really. Alistair, any final comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you both for coming on and being so honest about the complexities of all of this, and I think that it's good that it's really good that we are still thinking about the transformative nature, because I hate the idea of cynically, we do a report, some things are said, very little happens, there's a few new words and nothing happens. And if we can genuinely make sure that some of this stuff actually sticks in the longer term and create some of those power shifts, I mean, some of the things that can change aren't actually complicated, but they're hard, and it's the difference between that is because they're so embedded in the system that we've got so many experiences from so many people that can show just how well this works, and so the future is not in doubt. It's just about letting go of some of these things that people feel they're like a comfort blanket that we've got to do procurement in this way, we've got to do service provision in this way, and so it would be really, I'm really hopeful that we can, if we keep that link up between what's in the report and how we follow it up to make that power shift. I think it'll be amazing if we can make that happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. And I would just add to what you said, Alistair, the future is not in doubt, but as it says in Joe Strummer's autobiography, the future's unwritten. And we and lots of other people are desperate for that transformation that we talked about, that aspiration, because what no one wants is a new false dawn. We want something that's actually going to make a difference to people's experience in terms of getting the support that really works for them and their families and their communities. So thank you. Sorry, me and Alistair keep putting the reason why it comes on and off is me and Alistair do it at the same time.
She's coordinated.
Anyway, so we're saying a massive thank you to as our guests today. We are very happy to be involved in providing a vehicle for any further comments from people. We are happy to keep engaged with the review. We look forward to seeing what the review says. We have Feel Good Friday this Friday, Alistair, don't we? It's normal at 1 o'clock. Our online session. We've got our AGM next Tuesday at 3 p.m. We'll be back on webinar Wednesday. Next Wednesday, and our guests next Wednesday are.
I think it's Chris Third next week and Gosha from Health Improvement Scotland.
Yep. Okay. So thanks to everyone, and great to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Bye.
Bye.